Hello, everyone, and welcome back to First Dates and Soulmates, where there will be no slut shaming for the ho ho hos. I am your co-host, Meg Caseful. My pronouns are she, her, and I am joined today by...
It's Nikki McKnight here, also she, her, and very tickled at the idea of ho-ho-hos. We love them. Representation for hoes.
no slut shaming for hoes. We love it. And today we are celebrating Christmas in July. We're kicking off our whole month of Christmas in July celebrations by talking about holiday romance novels. Nikki, are you a holiday Christmas reader, or are you sort of, romance agnostic?
When I was younger, every year in my stocking, my mom would put one or two paperback books that she would get from like the local Shopper Strip Mart, like your local CVS. And it was always like a Debbie McComber, Maeve
Mm-hmm.
Binchy type of those massive trade paperbacks. So I would get those every Christmas in my stocking. It's fine. Like I love Christmas as a season. I love gift shopping. I hate Christmas music. Like I'm the type of person that Christmas music can only be played on the 24th and 25th. I shan't hear it otherwise. And those of us who have had retail jobs
Yeah.
know why we're supposed to those things. But like I like it as a setting. I think it is rife, or as a genre, it is rife with opportunity for drama and for excellent plot.
See, I am the opposite. As a celebrant of Christmas, it is not my favorite holiday. As somebody who is a little bit like, I don't love gift giving as an activity.
Mm-hmm.
It stresses me out a lot. Like, and all of the like shipping, and I mean, you worked in shipping, so you know. But it's like, I don't know if I'm gonna get the right gift. I don't
Mm-hmm.
like Christmas as a holiday. But
Mm-hmm.
I love Christmas music. Christmas
Oh,
music gets me in the mood for Christmas so much better than anything else. So like I am like, I want it, the day after Thanksgiving, and not a day sooner, but the day after Thanksgiving, I put on the Christmas music and I trim the tree with the kids and I hang up the stockings, and I don't care about what gifts are under the tree, but I like the tradition of like actually setting up the tree and putting up the lights and like the decorating.
mhm. Yeah, I like that too. I think it's interesting, like as people of the millennial-ish generation, like we're so minimalist in
Mm-hmm.
in almost like retaliation towards like what our parents' styles were. So
Uh-huh.
that the idea of having seasonal decor is so weird because I remember growing up as a kid, my parents would have like Rubbermaid totes
Uh-huh.
full of, and we would have garlands and we would have multiple Christmas trees and whatever. And now my parents, live in Florida half the year. So I usually put up their tree for them while they're gone. So when they come home for a week at Christmas, their tree is at least up, and I do my own tree. But like, other than that, like, it's not a big thing. But
Oh,
like
you're
one of my
such a good daughter.
my love language is gift giving and gift receiving, because
Oh.
I love the thought. Like I give good gift.
I'm
That is what my
like,
parents tell
of
you.
the five love languages, gift giving is number five, like in the
Hmm.
bottom. I am all quality time acts of service. That's it.
I see that. Yeah.
So for me, like, gift giving isn't the important part. And I, like you, I'm very like minimalist. I don't want to change things out. I
Mhm.
don't want to have a bunch of clutter around. My mother-in-law is also one of those like Christmas blows up her house.
Yeah.
And like at one point, especially when my kids were like little and you had the toys that made a lot of noise, they would go through and hit
Hmm.
every one of the toys, and she every year would go to the Hallmark store and get a different singing, dancing snowman. And they would walk around her house and hit the snowman. So you would have
Oh
18
my
different
God.
snowmen all going at the same time. And she was like, "Isn't this fun?" And I'm like, "No." She's like, "Well, you're going to
No.
inherit these." And I'm like, "Well, they're going to go to Goodwill when they get to my house."
Yeah, although you know what, you mentioned Hallmark. I was like, that is something I do like, is all the really bad. Like, I won't listen to Christmas music. Will I watch bad Netflix Christmas movies? Or I don't have the Hallmark channel, but my grandmother did. So what would we do? My grandmother literally after American Thanksgiving would print out the Hallmark channel like TV guide for
Oh
the
my
month of,
gosh.
November, December, and she would check off all the movies that she would watch. So she and I used to watch a lot of like Hallmark holiday movies. So let's just say I'm very familiar with the genre.
I love how romantic your family is.
In very weird ways.
Mine, none of that. I don't know if I've ever watched a Hallmark movie.
Oh
ever.
God, they're so bad, but I love them.
But the reason that we're bringing it up this month is that I have written a holiday romance novel,
It's true.
and it's going to be released later this month. By the release date, I think it'll be in 3 weeks. This will be coming out on the 25th. So we wanted to talk about the genre or the subgenre or category of
Hmm.
holiday romance. And
Hmm.
because I knew I was writing a holiday romance, and I didn't set out to write a holiday romance, it sort of just happened in winter. And then I was like,
Surprise.
I should probably learn about Christmas romance, right? So in the past year, I've read over 30 holiday romance novels because I
Good
really,
research.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's you really want to understand the trope as a writer. And for
Hmm.
something that is so many, not just tropes, but like micro tropes, I wanted to make sure that
Hmm.
I would give the readers a satisfying experience while also kind of making a little bit of a nod to what the expectations are of a holiday romance. Um,
Hmm.
so I will put the list of all the 30 romances that I've read in the past year, or maybe like the 20 that I recommend in our show notes, but we'll talk about a lot of them today. And the thing that I realized as I was reading through, you know, I think I read them in a 3 month period, which for you can do that in like a week. You can read 30 romances. But for us normie brains,
I think even if I wanted to do that, Meg, that would just be too much Christmas too quickly. I'd have to be like, give me a dark mafia romance now. I need to cleanse my mental palate.
and
So.
you know what I did is I read them between Thanksgiving and Christmas last year, or between Thanksgiving
Hmm.
and New Year's last year. So it was about a novel a day. So I really like
Hmm.
saturated myself with it so that I could feel it. And then I definitely went and read like a bunch of romantasy in January. I was just like, oh, I cannot handle one more like disgruntled tree farm worker. I just
Oh my God.
can't do it. Or one more, why do people bring their boss home to meet their family for their fake date? No, that's just a bad idea.
Oh, awkward.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I realized structurally when it comes to writing a romance, when it comes to expectations for a holiday romance, is that there are basically four ways that you can build holiday into a romance novel, or the things that you can expect out of a romance novel. So, I'm going to
Mhm.
walk through them really quickly in much the same way that you did with our enemies to lovers episode, because the Christmas can serve, or the holiday season can serve in four different capacities. It can be the plot of the book, it can be the setting, it can be the goal, or it can be the conflict. So I'm
Mhm.
going to talk through all of those, and if you have examples or if you have favorites in this bunch of the
Mhm.
way that you like to see this done, I'll chat about that with you. So the first thing is Christmas is the plot of the story.
Mhm.
When you think about writing a Christmas book, this is sort of what you expect. So the one that I think my favorite one of these that is a plot driven Christmas novel that I read this past year is Big Nick Energy by Morgan Elizabeth. The plot of this is that the heroine is a single mom and she goes to her friend's dad's tree farm for Thanksgiving because she has two small kids and they want to go ride the horses. And the friend's dad is like, oh, are you going to have Elf on the Shelf come to your house this year? And she's like, you shut your mouth. Do not bring Elf on, because her little girls are like, oh, what's Elf on the Shelf? Yeah, we want that. And so the tree farmer, Nick, Big Nick Energy, he drives an hour to her house every night to set up Elf on the Shelf for her daughters, leading up into Christmas. How sweet is that?
It's really sweet, but my first question is, does he have a key or is Elf on the Shelf being set up outside?
No, she lets him into her house. So she's always
Okay.
there.
I was like, does she just wake up and she's just like, God damn it, the elf came alive again?
These freaking elves. No, he after the kids go to bed, he comes over and then, after a week of doing this, she offers them a glass of wine and they have a conversation. And so it's like a little bit of a slow
Hmm.
burn, especially because she was in an abusive relationship before and she's
Yeah.
recently divorced. And so, you kind of get a slow build of their friendship. Um,
Hmm.
so that one's really sweet. And then another one that I love that is completely plot driven, it's actually erotica, is called Santa Claus is Going to Town on Me.
I can
It's
imagine.
Yeah,
I can
this is
imagine what this plot is around.
this is very clearly Christmas plot because it is Holly wakes up, she hears someone in her house, she goes downstairs, it's Santa. He can read her thoughts about what she wants to do with him, and that's how that one goes.
Yeah, you know what this kind of reminds me about is the Norway had this Christmas commercial one year, and it was really pretty. So it was every year Santa would come down the chimney and like have the milk and cookies, whatever, and there would be a man sitting there, and it's kind of like, hey, like, oh, you've caught me, and then he would come back the next year, and then they had a glass of wine together. But he comes back year after year after year, and it's a really cute commercial from Norway. And that's what that kind of reminds me of. Just like showing up year after year, just having like their little relationship. It's called When Harry Met Santa. It
Oh.
was an advertisement for like the Norwegian postal service. It's so random, but it's so cute, this idea. Yeah. Because like I think the Christmas genre really has that baked in
Mhm.
about how like everybody just says goodwill towards men,
Ha.
but it's just like these happy vibes. So I think you know when you have, but it's also such a stressful time,
Yeah.
and especially with when you're talking about like big Nick energy, like, oh my god, like another thing I have to do,
Mhm.
or like a Bad Mom's Christmas, the movie. This idea that like their mothers are coming to visit them, and they each want to celebrate Christmas in their own way, and it's just like it's stress upon stress upon stress upon stress, that to have someone support you in that is like, oh, thank God. Even if it is Elf on the Shelf, with honestly, I think it's one of the creepiest things.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad my kids have never asked for it, and
Okay, good.
we
You're not
wouldn't.
an Elf on the Shelf
No,
household.
we wouldn't do it even if they asked for it. We'd be like, "Nope, you're good enough. We don't need to report back. Fine." Like we but that's our parenting style. We're very minimalist in most things that we do. Um, do you have any favorite like plot driven like Santa's here, he's in it, or everyone's coming to town for Christmas, it's a big dinner
Um,
favorites?
not necessarily for this
Okay.
particular one. Because I'm not like, well, yes and no. Like so many of those Hallmark ones are like, it's all like A Christmas Prince, which is a completely distinct film from A Prince for Christmas. They are
Right.
not the same film, but
Not the
Netflix
same.
has both of them. So there is something kind of interesting there about like families coming together to engage in tradition
Mhm.
that I think is really kind of lovely. It's not like my preferred plot, but there is something like really cute and easy, which I think is one of the reasons I really did like those stocking stuffer books. Because honestly, like I'd get them in my stocking, we'd finish opening Christmas gifts, we'd have like a really late breakfast, and then I would just sit on the couch and read them.
That's
So
so
by dinner I
perfect.
was done. But it was just like
Yeah.
a nice like hang out with my family, read these very predictable, but very comforting, cute
And I
books.
think that's the thing that people love about holiday romance. There's something very comfortable, nostalgic, slow, easy. So many of these books are low conflict, low angst. It's not the big set piece, things go exploding. It's very cozy and small and intimate, is what you sort of expect from
Hmm.
a holiday romance often.
For sure.
Okay. Our next option of how you can integrate holiday into a romance and what you can expect is the setting. So, for a lot of these books, it's not really about the holiday, it's about the time of year. Some of them
Hmm.
are, they call themselves holiday romance because there's like a tree somewhere, but
Hmm.
really, some of them are winter romance.
Yeah.
And when I looked at the keywords for this genre too, some of them are people looking for winter romance. They're not necessarily looking for holidays. So these are some examples of this are like ski trips or
Hmm.
being snowed in somewhere. I love a good snowed in. And then there are also holiday events that you find a lot at this time of year. So it's not necessarily that the whole big family gets together for Christmas, but there's an office holiday party and you need to have a date to the office holiday party. Or you are going home and you need to bring a date home to meet your family because maybe you just got dumped and you want to show them that you're getting over it. So there's a lot of fake dating that happens in the holiday romance genre because of these opportunities for group events where you have to show up and you don't want to go alone.
Yeah, that's totally why Die Hard is a Christmas movie, right?
Yes. like
There's another one.
we will talk about this in our next episode, but this is why Love Actually is a Christmas movie. It's not really
Hmm.
about Christmas. It's about a holiday party. It's about a holiday concert happening. It's about,
Hmm.
people walking in the snow, but it's a Christmas song, but it's not really a Christmas movie. It's a
Yeah.
winter movie, you know?
Yeah, like one of my favorites actually in here. One of them is "Merry Measure" by Lily Morton,
Mhm.
and this is when a family and some friends go to Amsterdam for the holiday season because one of the brothers is going to propose. So he invites his best friend, his younger brother, and it's really just like him and the younger brother and the friend who are like, well, we're just going to go around Amsterdam because I've always kind of had a thing for you. And again, it's Christmas in Amsterdam, but this could have happened anywhere.
Yep.
The other one I really like actually is Snow Way in Hell by Charlie Novak. So again, it's a pre-Christmas holiday ski trip of a family, and they're like, "Yeah, come hang out." It's a brother's best friend one, which again, I
Yes.
love.
Well, I
But
like best
they're
friend's
like,
brother, but I'll take a brother's best friend.
yeah, and it's got there's missing luggage. There's a really bad hotel. There's only one bed, and it's winter, but it just happens to be pre Christmas. It doesn't really need to have that. So I do like it when it's not as like Santa is not the point, I'll say.
Mhm.
But I do like this idea of, again, going back to this idea of like there's so much stress and there's so much like the scheduling just around Christmas,
Yes.
especially between, work parties and family stuff, especially if you're coming from like a divorced family. Like I know my sister in law, when she and my brother first got married, having like they had to visit three different families over the holidays over the course of
Mhm.
like 5 days, and then they did that with a baby, and then they were like, you know what, no, you guys can come to
You
us, like
come
we're
to
not
me. Yeah.
traveling, like because everybody's so all over the place. So it just seems so stressful that I think it is, really gives you a lot of availability or options to create stress
Yeah, well,
and
the conflict
stakes.
of the plot is built in because you do have family tension. You do have travel problems, right? Like whether it's snowed in or flight delays or things like that because of the winter
Hmm.
weather. Like there are so many things that can go wrong, which is like
Hmm.
what you want to be able to bring those characters together and to have them go
Yeah.
through something together and come out on the other side of it.
Like Home Alone is like essentially turns into a planes, trains, and automobiles
Yeah.
because the mom can't get home because there's travel delays and there's Christmas, and then you add in like there's burglary because people are like presents and things are at home. Like let's do this. That it does. There's also to what you said earlier about this thing about, well, I need a date to my holiday party so that I
Mhm.
can get a promotion because they want to see that I'm settled, or they don't trust unmarried executives or what have you. So I think it does get
Or
really
my
funny, and I
ex-boyfriend's
do.
gonna be there and I don't want him to see me alone. Yeah, there's a lot of, the
Yes.
expectations of a relationship.
Yeah, and I think that really plays into like a lot of the Hallmark movies too. Is this thing is like the setting is Christmas. Honestly, it could be anytime, anywhere. All it does is you're just subbing in different plot points. That instead of my pumpkin patch, it's my tree farm. Which, if you were doing it in the spring, would be like my family's restaurant or my like my wedding venue business, right? Like it's so easy to just plug and play all of these different things, but there is something I think about setting it in the holidays that automatically ratchets everything up.
It's such a
It's very
small time
constrained.
window where everyone feels like they have to get together. The weather is bad, and you have the added stress of the events and the gifts, and like there's so much to it. So you could take that same idea and you could say, "Oh, let's have a summer barbecue." But then
Hmm.
you pull out some of the conflict of the travel and all those things that could go wrong.
Yeah, because a summer barbecue could happen anywhere from like May through to September, honestly,
Mhm.
depending on what part of the world you're in. Versus Christmas is like this is all going to happen in 3 weeks, and offices are closed, schedules are booked, flights aren't available. You have to plan it 6 months in advance. That there's just, yeah, that you have to make decisions quickly, and quick decisions always don't mean good results,
Yeah,
which thus provides fodder of like,
exactly.
I need help, I need things to be fixed because Lord help me, I don't know how I'm going to make this work.
So let me move on to the next one because I feel like you just queued me up
Mhm.
really well, which is
Yeah.
Christmas can be the end result. It can be the goal.
Mhm.
One of the books that does this really well is Holiday Romance by Catherine Walsh. I love this book. It is two Dubliners, two Irish people who went to college in Chicago. And
Mm.
they, when they were in college, they sat next to each other on the plane ride from Chicago to Dublin right after her roommate broke up with him. So they get stuck next to each other and it's like a super awkward 8-hour plane ride to get home. And then the next year they're on the same plane, and the next year they're on the same plane, and they start to travel together over time because they're like, well, we're going to be on the same flight from Chicago to Dublin, we may as well sit next to each other. And then after a while they start to like share presents and bring presents to each other. And so by the time this book happens, it's told over this 10-year period. And it starts in the present day, and then you get their 10 years back. And then it comes back to present day, and then 9 years ago, and then present and 8 years ago. So you're slowly moving forward in time, watching them become friends, watching them date other people and talk about it. And then a snowstorm hits Chicago. They get trapped in the airport, and they have to fly, instead of flying to Dublin, they fly to Buenos Aires, and then they go to Paris, and then they take the channel, and then they take a boat back to Dublin to get there on time, right? So it's like spoilers. So it's very much this couple that's going through this difficult situation because they want to both get home for Christmas, but they've grown feelings for each other over this 10-year period. And now they're both finally single after 10 years of sitting next to each other on a plane. It's lovely.
That's really cute.
It's really sweet. And like Christmas isn't the plot, it's where they're trying to get to. It's the goal of the book. Another one that I really loved that hits this structure is A Cross Country Christmas, where this is brother's best friend. Lauren and Will both live in California. They're trying to get home to Illinois, and so they road trip across the country together. And this one also has some second chance vibes because they met when they were in Illinois, and then they both moved out to California. They sort of hooked up once, but he was drunk, and then he said something mean, and she shut him out. So like they get the chance to reevaluate what their relationship was, because while he's not, a fuck boy, basically.
There you go. Yeah. Like I like this one. The first thing that comes to mind when I think about this is that Jonathan Taylor Thomas movie, I'll Be Home for Christmas. Because
Yes.
obviously being of the generation that I am, I had many posters of JTT up on
You
my
were a
walls.
JTT guy?
Yeah.
You're a JTT gal?
I had the Bop, the BB, the Tiger Beat magazine. Jonathan Taylor Thomas featured prominently. So when he got to do like that holiday, like planes, trains, and automobiles style to get home, really loved that. But again, this is, I think, I see this more often in like those more of the Hallmark movies that involve like that trope of I gotta save the Christmas tree farm, or
Mm.
big city girl goes to the country and she's there to foreclose on this fifth generation family tree farm, but they only have until the 25th to raise money, so she falls in love with small town life and helps revitalize it, and they can pay the bill on Christmas Eve, right? Like this deadline of Christmas, I think, is always like really interesting. Or it's like there's an end point, like there,
Yes.
like with the flights, it's like there's a flight time. We only have this finite amount of time to either solve a problem or to create a relationship or to get answers to something. So there's a lot of leaps that a character has to make emotionally, mentally, like quickly,
Mm-hmm.
because then it's done. And that, again, talking about like opportunities for tension, can really do it. Like, it makes me think of the film Happiest Season, Clea Duvall's one with like Kristen Stewart. The Bechtel cast did a fantastic episode all about this movie, with Jess Tom was the guest on that episode. And that movie was presented as like finally like a holiday movie for gay people, because it's written and directed by Clea Duvall, who is queer. It's got Kristen Stewart, who's queer. So like, oh look, it's like these two women are together, and Kristen Stewart wants to propose to her girlfriend. And then her girlfriend's like, I have to go home for Christmas. I want you to come with me. Oh, by the way, I never came out to my parents. They do not know you're my girlfriend. They think you're my roommate. So yeah, you should totally come with me. But she drops this on the fact that she's not out and that she has to pretend to be her straight roommate while they're in the car on the way to her
Oh.
parents' house. Her
Mm.
parents, super conservative, and her dad is running for local office. And so has to be like, Americana. Victor Garber plays the dad. Mary Steenburgen plays the mom. Like, phenomenal cast. But, Jess Tom's point in that episode was like, this was presented as finally a feel good holiday movie for queer people. And it was very much not that. It
Yeah,
was
that's not
so
feel good.
stressful.
No.
Like, no, there was gaslight. Like, we loved Dan Levy was there as like Kristen Stewart's best friend. We love a Dan Levy appearance, but there was like this stress, and it was all centered around like this big Christmas party, and the fact that Kristen Stewart, who was orphaned, like her character was orphaned at a young age around Christmas, and so hated Christmas, wanted to propose to her girlfriend at Christmas to kind of one rewrite these memories because she was actually happy and meet her girlfriend's family, who turns out has no idea that she's gay or that Kristen Stewart even exists. Like, that is where like the goal of Christmas. I'm going to propose. Obviously things go completely wrong. People get outed against their will, a big family dust up at a Christmas party, and it does end up well, but they resolve everything. And then the next morning there's a really cute thing where they take a family photo and they invite Kristen Stewart's character to be in the photo. They have like matching
Oh.
pajamas on. Cute.
Oh.
But like the stress we had to get through to get to that point, not so fun. Not happy holiday movie Clea Duvall. But again, this tension of family tradition, the date of Christmas, wanting to propose at Christmas, like, whew,
Yeah.
there was some stress going on with that story.
Well, that actually brings me into my fourth and final way that we can integrate the holidays, which is the holiday is the conflict. So yes, we can have you have to get home by Christmas as the goal, but I would say in this case, it sounds like the holiday is the conflict. So you see this a lot in you need to save money to save your Christmas farm or your holiday
Mhm.
bakery or whatever, or the bad guy comes to town to shut things down, or oh man, I read one called The Grumpiest Elf where like his family owns a holiday boutique and they make him dress like an elf and he doesn't want to anymore. But then you got a sunshine character who is new to the business and she likes being an elf, right? Like there's always like if you have the holiday is the tension, I feel like that could be like a conflict based where the holiday is the problem. Um,
Mhm.
and like you said, I have in my notes, like holidays can be triggering for people who have had traumatic experiences. So I loved Set the Record Straight by Hannah Bonham Young, who is one of the characters starts straight and she ends up working in an art gallery and they assume that she's queer. And so she brings her best friend to the party and then she realizes that, oh, my childhood best friend, I have feelings for her. And she wants to bring her home to meet or to see her family because they were childhood best friends and her girlfriend doesn't want to go back to where she had been forcibly outed and pushed out of her house. So going home can be triggering and traumatic, and confronting those feelings, it's especially stressful during the holidays.
And I think if you think about like small businesses, again, there's a lot of plot
Love
lines
small
utilize small
businesses,
businesses. Not always a Christmas tree farm, um,
but
but
usually a
people
Christmas
like
tree farm.
B and B's.
Mm.
But again, the concept of timing is always interesting because it's like I have think about like artisans, right? I have to create so much inventory for
Mhm.
Christmas markets. I need to sell. And if they don't sell, then I'm screwed because I've already outlaid all of this money to
Mhm.
create these handmade decorations for sale at the local Christmas market, right? There was one series, I think it's by N.R. Walker, and there's like the Christmas wish list, Tic Tac Mistletoe, Merry Christmas Cupid. I think it's the Heartbridge series, and it's like it's got it does have a little bit Christmas as a set, like it's winter in this small town that is fairly inaccessible once there's snow because it's mountains.
Mhm.
One of the books definitely has like a snowed in type of theme to
Yes.
it, which I know is your catnip. It's
Mhm.
forced close proximity. We're snowed in. But there's also things like, you know, a B and B does most of its business
Mhm.
at the holiday season. Well, what happens if that B&B gets flooded a week before guests are supposed to arrive? And then you got to like rush a handyman in there and woohoo. But like, I really, actually, I think Christmas as the conflict is probably one of my favorites just because it's the confluence of like everything coming together and being like, we got to mess shit up. Nobody is at their best during this time. So if you can still like get through that,
Yeah.
it's very much like the you've seen me at my worst. I swear I'm not normally this bad.
Yeah, I think there's one you might like, which is called The Grump Who Stole Christmas. It's about it's about a woman who works in operations. She's the COO of a giant conglomerate in New York City, and her dad falls and breaks his hip, and so she has to go back to the B&B that he runs in Denver, or like up in the mountains. And there's also a tree farm attached to it, and there's a lumberjack who runs the tree farm, and guess who she falls in love with? But you get a lot of that same kind of like big city girl goes to the small town and falls in
Mhm.
love with the slower paced lifestyle, but she also brings the operations into the B&B and is like, okay,
Yeah.
let's talk about the marketing, let's hire the right
Does she have a
consultants.
color coded filing system?
She does not. I was a little disappointed because it should have
Ruined.
at
The trope
least
has
been
been
red and
ruined.
green.
The
we've
trope
lost
has
our
been ruined. I don't know how good this is.
we've dropped our streak of color coded filing systems.
No.
So, do you have any particular favorite like tropes or micro tropes that you love to see? Do you love a tree farm? Do you hate a
Ooh.
tree farm? Do you like a mistletoe kiss? Do you want hot chocolate? Like, do you want to go ice skating? What are the things that like not even like the actions, but those opportunities? What are some of your favorites that you love?
So this is funny, like, because I do like the whole like I'll call it like the second chance, like because Christmas oftentimes does have like that homecoming element to it because
Mhm.
much like American Thanksgiving, like that's very much portrayed as like one of the busiest days in travel is
Yeah.
like Christmas and American Thanksgiving, at least in North America. And I'm Canadian, and we still know not to fly American Thanksgiving weekend.
Don't do it.
But this idea of like everybody comes back, it even reminds me of what is that Ryan Reynolds film? Just Friends, Almost
Mm.
Friends. Like he's heading home for Christmas. Well, he wasn't going to because he didn't want to because he's a high-powered record executive now, and he's flying with pop star Anna Faris, and then she puts metal in the microwave on the plane, so the plane has to land, and it lands in his hometown, and he's with his family who does Christmas up big, and then there's the girl he had a crush on in school and whatever. So I like this idea of people returning, and it's kind of like, oh, so that's who you are now. Like you've changed, I've changed, and one or the other character tends to look down on the person who's local still.
Mhm.
Like, oh, you're still here. I went and got a big job. I went to the city, this mystical city, which apparently is so much better. I'm like, so I left the city. I moved out of the city 6 years ago and I moved to the country because I was like, y'all, maybe I'll just find a tree farmer. Maybe that's what I'll find out here. Or in my case, probably more of a vineyard owner,
Vineyard,
but
you need a vineyard
still.
owner. Let's write you a different story.
Yeah, or like I do like kind of the idea of like those silly contests.
Mm.
Like who's going to decorate the best house or who's going to have like the best batch of cookies. Like it's kind of lame, but they're so easy. Going back to like one of our very first episodes, like they're easy cupcakes. I can just
Yes.
eat. It's a mini cupcake. It's really small. I can eat it. It's great, and
It
I can
gives you
just kind
that
of move
satisfying
on.
rush of sugar, but it's not going to completely spike
Exactly.
ruin your entire appetite for the day.
Exactly. And then, obviously you have like one of our favorite tropes is this idea of like best friend's brother's best friend. Some is a best friend of a relative somehow.
Like
Those
the
are always
off
kind of fun.
limits, but they're coming home for
Yes.
a sister. Okay, there's one that I love. It's called Can I Tell You Something? And
Mm.
they're American, but they fly to, I'm going to say Switzerland. They have like a chalet in
Hmm.
Switzerland, and her whole family gets together. And she hasn't seen her brother because, like, I don't know, she lives in Chicago and he lives in LA or something. And her brother brings home his roommate with them. And immediately, as soon as she hears his voice, she knows that he is her favorite podcaster who reads erotica. But
I
she
think I've read this.
I love this one, but she can't reveal. She doesn't want to reveal, like, hey, I recognize your voice because I listened to you read porn to me.
I no, I haven't read that one. I've read an MM version of that one.
Okay, you're gonna have to
As a
share that one with
narrator.
me. It might not
Yeah.
be because again, this is it's coming home for the holidays, but it's just that forced proximity. They go skiing. It's a vacation versus a like
Mhm.
hard holiday. But I love that one when it comes to the best friend's brother or brother's best friend.
Mhm. That's fun. Like, family, there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong. The ones that I don't love, though, and this is just my own
That's
preferences.
fine. That's why I'm asking.
I don't love wins with, like, kids in them or, like, precocious children.
Uh
Like, even in movies,
huh.
I hate the precocious child character, especially in holiday movies. It's like, "Hey, mister, don't you know about the spirit of Christmas?" It's like, "Oh my god, kid, shut up." I can't not even with, like, romance books, like, I generally don't like ones that have kids in them, but even more so at Christmas because I feel like there's just this, like, I have to help this old person, but this old crotchety, high-powered businessman, like believe in the power of Christmas, and I will do that by like having a real sweet moment with him, and like, but Mister, don't you believe in Santa? It's just
It
I
gets a little
can't.
too
I
like
just
Tiny Tim or like Miracle on 34th Street when like the
yeah,
kid
no,
is the turning point. I don't love.
no,
Um,
I don't love it.
there's one that I read that I loved, and I don't love. I mean, I just told you I started this with the single parent one, but in general,
Mhm,
as a parent, I don't want to read a lot of like bratty kids in my novels because I'm like, no, I'm trying to escape
mhm,
my kids. I'm like, they're
mhm,
interrupting me while I'm trying to read this. I don't want to read annoying kids in my book.
mm,
But I did find one called Let Your Hearts Be Light by Faye Quinn that is single parent, and I love it. He adopted his niece when his sister died, and
mhm,
his niece sees that he's lonely, so she signs him up for like a buddy program at school, and he
mhm,
gets set up with a divorcee as a buddy. And so there's a bi awakening that happens, but it's the two teens are like not in like a parent trappy way trying to conspire to get their dads together. um but the two teens like get together to like bake cookies at the dad's bakery, and then one of them saves the bakery and then builds the whole thing, and it's like it's super sweet. And I think that another thing that I found from reading a lot of holiday romances is that like the third act breakup is often just the conflict. It's not necessarily like a
yeah,
big stakes thing. It's like, oh no,
mhm.
we need to work together to fix the bakery. Like it's very much like a goal oriented conflict versus a breakup conflict.
Yeah, and I think that one also shows up with like the going back to our enemies and lovers episode talking about like the power or class enemies to
Mm-hmm.
lovers, like usually boss employee. The one that makes me so uncomfortable again because I've said I don't love that I don't really love boss employee. There's been like maybe one exception to this is this idea that like I'm going to hire you, my employee, to be my girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, when I go home for the
Oof.
holidays because
Oof.
I need
Nope.
to show X, Y, and Z, or I need to show to potential investors, or I need to get my family off my back, or for whatever reason, I need someone to just come along and act as a loving partner. I was like, oh, how do we think that's actually going to change that person?
Yeah.
Like,
And
ew.
like, are we paying them? Is there some sort of obligation? Am I going to lose my job if I don't do this well? Like, anytime that there's a power dynamic like that, I'm uncomfortable. So I would rather just have them be
Mhm.
coworkers who do that versus
Yeah.
boss employee, because it definitely changes the power dynamics of the whole thing and makes me like squicky.
Yeah, because too often a lot of those also come with this idea of if you do this, I'll help you get your promotion. Like, look at the proposal, Sandra Bullock and Ryan Reynolds, the
Hmm.
film, right? If you help me keep my green card, I'm going to promote you to editor. I was like, oh no, no, Sandy B, we don't want this. I've only
Mm-mm.
seen that movie once. I can't sit through it again because of that. Even though there's beautiful comedic moments in there, I couldn't watch it more than once. I was like, this just, I don't care that it's like a woman boss and and a male subordinate. This is still just no. Like,
Especially when
or
it's like,
when someone
this boss has been a terrible human being. Like, he's an alpha and he's been treating me like garbage, and I didn't go get another job because no reason. But now he's going to be nice to me, and he's going to be nice to me for 3 days, and then we're going to realize that, oh, he was just being mean to me because he's in love with me. Nope, nope, nope.
no,
Not
I think there's
interested.
something to be said for, like, the grand gesture. A lot of times these, especially at the holidays, I'm thinking about that movie, Holidate, Emma
Mm.
Roberts. Basically, this man and this woman agree to be each other's dates to, like, holidays and stuff throughout the year to just keep family off their back, and I was like, "That was kinda cute." But, of course, it ends with, like, a big speech, like a big grand gesture in front of everyone, And I don't love that when it's also layered on top of a holiday romance because as we've said, the season is so transient. It's very short that I feel like a grand gesture, all of the hoopla and the energy around it is gone so quickly that I'm like, I don't think that grand gesture is going to last till next week.
Mm-mm. Nope.
This is very much a
You're
happy
not going to make
14
it till
day.
New Year's. Yeah.
No, it's so, or like again, the holiday. Jack Black, Cameron Diaz, Jude Law,
Yes.
Kate Winslet. I love the Jack Black, Kate Winslet part of that movie. Cameron Diaz and Jude Law, I could do without because big grand gesture over the holidays. I'm sorry, she runs like a trailer production company in LA. She's not moving to England.
Nope.
He has 2 kids and is recently widowed. He's not moving to LA. They're gonna spend New Year's together, and that's probably gonna be it. Kate Winslet at least and Jack Black could work from anywhere. I was like, honestly, I was like, Kate Winslet, move to LA, be with Jack Black. Screw Rufus Sewell. But there's because the holiday is so transient and there's all of this emphasis put on, the merriment and the energy and the events and the decorations, that what happens when that quiets down? What happens when you go back to normal and we get into like, January, February blues? That's why I think like the grand gesture of like standing on stage and I love you and I bought this thing for you, or even like using the Christmas tree farm as an example, something like where like the Christmas tree farm is in trouble and like the two of them have fallen in love, but one of them is like, no, I got to go back to the city. So they leave behind like the deed to the farm and they've like signed it back over to the original family, and then they leave and that's like their grand gesture. And then someone chases after them to the airport to be like, you gave me my family's Christmas tree farm. It's like, what are y'all doing next Wednesday?
Yeah. Are we just doing long distance forever because we have fundamentally different lives? Yeah.
It gets to be a little silly, which I think is why I like winter as a setting more often than I like Christmas as a setting. Because again, it's so transient, it's so short. I'm like, what are y'all going to do after this? Why?
Yeah. And so
Why?
often it ends on like Christmas or like the next day. If we make it till New Year's, it's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, like there's still so much open. And I feel like, a lot of times I'll read a romance novel and it'll be a big grand gesture. And I'm like, yeah, but are you going to make it even a year? you know?
Yeah. You know what? There's one that I would say is a little bit different for this to me. So it's a book called Ice Capade by Josh Lannion. It's kind of more like Christmas as a setting, kind of not. Basically, there's a character who is a retired art thief, jewel thief. And he now is like on a farm. And he always had this like cat and mouse game with the FBI agent that was after him. And he essentially like knew who the agent was, slept with him while he had hidden a diamond in another part of the hotel, but he couldn't get out right away. So he stayed with the
God,
FBI agent,
I love it.
left him before he woke up, got the diamond, and then went out. He had an accident, so he retired from his life of thievery. But now he's running like a farm or a greenhouse or something. I can't quite remember what the setting is. And then the FBI agent shows up one day and he says, there's been a crime. They're using your MO. I
Oh.
think it's you. Prove where you are. And he's like, I am retired. A bunch of other things. They rescue an alpaca. It's fine. But since the thief like retired, he's been calling the FBI agent every Christmas to wish him a Merry Christmas, but the FBI agent never picks up. He's like, it would have been, I couldn't talk to you. You're a thief, and great, the statute of limitations has expired on everything you've done, so I can't do anything. But eventually it comes out that like there was no copycat, there was no other MO. He just wanted to see the thief again.
Oh.
So they do have a thing where it's like, you won't have to spend another Christmas alone type of deal with those phone calls. So like that is what was really cute in terms of a gesture that I did enjoy. And that was kind of fun because I was like, he's a thief and an FBI agent, which is like 2 plot points we don't typically see at Christmas.
Yeah,
There's
you
no
see
Christmas
it
tree farm, but there was an alpaca farm nearby that they saved a baby alpaca from like who had fallen in a ravine.
yeah, you see that in romantic suspense, but not in like a sweet little Christmas story. That's so cute.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite tropes that people play with in Christmas is like revisiting the same location year over year.
Mm-hmm.
Of
That one's nice.
like I said with like holiday romance where they were on the plane every year but their life changed, and so you have that.
Mm-hmm.
Another one that does this really well is called Maybe This Christmas, where it's a novella. it's every chapter is a year for 10 years. And so they start in high school and they go to the beach and they have their first kiss. And then the next year she comes back from college and he stayed home and she went to college far away and they break up then. And then the next year she comes back and he's with a new girlfriend. And so like you kind of like, it gives you time to have growth in between. I think sometimes when we condense the plot lines, like you're saying, like, can you really fall in love in a week? Um,
Mm-hmm.
but if you can kind of stretch it out and you can have these revelations in between the chapters, that also can make a huge difference. And I mean, I'm going to come out and say, like, I think you can fall in love in a holiday season because I should have brought this up sooner. I met my husband on Thanksgiving Day and I told him that I loved him on New Year's Eve. Like, it can happen.
It's pretty quick.
Yeah, we met. We had a 9-hour first date. We saw each other one more time because we lived in different cities. We did long distance. I mean, we did it for 2 years. And I told him I loved him on New Year's Eve, but I don't remember that. He told me that I told him I loved him after having too much to drink. But like, it can happen.
Oh, that's cute. Okay.
Mhm.
I like that story. That's a fun little gesture. We can
I told him that I loved him sober like 3 weeks after that, so it wasn't that long. And we did do the long distance thing, and there were people who were like, how is this going to work? So it is possible, but I would not recommend long distance for 2 years. Don't do it.
How do you feel, going back to this idea of grand gestures, it just makes me think proposals at
Mm.
Christmas, but from the wrong person. Like how, there's something like someone has met someone over the holidays, but they already have a partner. And they're like, but there's a moment. And then their current partner, who's maybe a drip or a bad person, or is like a Bill Pullman in Sleepless in Seattle. Really, Bill Pullman was perfect in Sleepless in Seattle, but she went with Tom Hanks. Fine. Walter had allergies, and that's why we're dumping him. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, but like their current partner proposes, and they're like, yes. But they're like, but Tom Hanks is over there. Like, how do you feel about like that, like partner switch at Christmas?
I think it has to be really well executed. I think it can be an interesting plot, especially if you have like a long term relationship and they're not super happy with it. And then they meet someone else and they're like, oh, that was the spark that I would have expected. And there's sort of like an awakening to what could be that happens in that. I mean, first of all, any public proposal makes me, it gives me all the heebie jeebies. Like anytime they do not propose in front of anybody else. Because then it adds a whole new level of complexity and I don't know, it weirds me out. Like it's like then you're obligated. That it's not a conversation. It's a like.
Yeah, anything in public, anything on a jumbotron,
Mhm.
just no, no.
Even like in
Marching
front of
band flash mob, no.
even like in front of your family, where you feel like, oh, I don't want to say no to you or have a conversation about this in front of other people. Like I don't know, it feels like it should be an intimate thing. I don't know. Maybe that's just
Yeah,
me and my life experience and my level of comfort, but um, no, I don't have a problem with like a long term partner proposes at the holidays, and someone else comes in and there's a change of heart. I think that's fine if it's set up well, but I don't want
yeah,
it. I need it to happen in like the first third of the book. I don't
yeah.
want it
I
to
think
drag
if you
out
get towards the
forever.
end,
Hmm.
no. I will say too, kind of talking about like holiday movies, since we do have an episode coming up on a holiday
Ooh.
film. Um, I also do some work in like background acting for TV and film. And last year, just before the writer's strike, I worked on a Netflix Christmas movie that I believe is going to come out this year. It's called Meet Me Next Christmas, or at least it was when it was in production. It's got Christina Milian in it, but also like Pentatonics, the a cappella group.
Cool.
So the plot line, which is public, so I think I can say this about it, is basically like something to do with like the hottest ticket in town is the Pentatonics Christmas concert or New Year's concert. I don't know how they're doing that. Big holiday concert. And something around like Christina Milian's character met someone at Christmas and now it's like it's the next year and she's trying to find him again, but then things go awry.
No.
So yeah, so the scene that I filmed was the big ending with the at the Pentatonics concert. So we got to hang out with Pentatonics
Oh,
for a
cool.
day, which was pretty cool. They were so nice. But yeah, it was the big scene, and we were at the Christmas concert, so we all had like bright sequined clothing on because it was a big thing, and I was front row center
Hey,
of
girl.
that. So I'm hoping I'll actually see myself on screen in that one. But like that was like another grand gesture. But because I know what happened beforehand and how it unveiled, I was like, okay, this kind of makes sense. Although there is a Santa costume involved in this big scene, and I
Mm.
don't know how I feel about a Santa costume. I think a Santa costume is weird. That's weird. Why is there a fake beard? I don't know.
All right. Is there any final thoughts that we have about holiday romances for our Christmas in July episode?
I will say I do like the trope, but it is also not a genre I will read outside of December. Much like my
Mm.
Christmas music, I like my holiday stories to be centered at the time of year when that holiday is happening. Otherwise, no. So I shan't read Christmas stories or holiday stories outside of the month of December.
Well, you are not alone. I did look up the stats for this, and for general, not just the ebooks, but specific, for all sales of holiday romances, in the month of December, if you take the top 30 bestsellers in the month of December, there are about 30,000 sales of those as
Ooh.
opposed to January where there are 4,000. So it's very much seasonal. There's probably about 15,000 in November. There is a bit of a spike in July. I think there's more than just me who are putting out holiday romances in July for Christmas in July. But when you look at May, it's like 500 because nobody wants to read this. So you're not alone in wanting that holiday romance to happen in the winter. It makes you feel kind of cozy and tucked in, but you
Yes,
don't want to read them year round. I get that.
it's the cozy feeling.
It's
I love
cozy.
cozies.
All right, I think that wraps us up on our holiday romance episode. So, Nikki, to wrap things up here, what are you reading, writing, ranting, or raving about?
So I think this fits in quite nicely for this topic. So I recently read this book by Christina Lauren called The Exception to the Rule.
Ooh.
And it is a part of a series called The Improbable Meet Cute, which again is a multi author series.
I did read this one.
And
I
this
loved
one,
it.
it was cute. So basically, the plot line is that this person back in like high school, I think, sends an email to their professor or their teacher saying, "Hey, question," and the person writes back, "Hey, this is not the teacher. We have like the same initials, but you put the wrong like number at the end of the email. I'm actually another student." Um, and thus kicks off like multiple years of every day, every year on Valentine's Day. These two people who have never given any details about themselves, only their initials, because that's in their email address, they race to see who will send the first email on Valentine's Day. And there's a big competition. So the first, big chunk of the book is just them sending emails back and forth. It's like February 14th, 2010, 2011, 2012. I got you first. Shit, I forgot I was drunk.
I set
We
an
have a
alarm.
Yeah, I set an alarm and it was like, 12:01 and you had already sent one. I'm like, no. And going back and forth.
One of the things I loved about this book, and it's so short, it's like the sweetest little novella, is that you get in the same way that you get any sort of secret identity. Over the years, they give little bits of information about each other, where it's like when they start, they're emailing each other in Pacific time because they're both in California. And then one of them moves to the Midwest. And so they email earlier because it's midnight there. And then one of them moves to the East Coast. So like just by virtue of the nature of moving, they're giving each other these little details. Or they say things about like, oh, my sister, so and so. So they're giving little
Yeah.
details about their lives without giving their names. But it's so like innocent at first. And then over time, they start to get to know each other over these annual
Yeah. And I think
emails.
it's so cute when they start saying like, "Hey, do you think we should actually meet?" Or like, "I'm thinking there might be something there." And one of them is like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I actually have a boyfriend or I actually have a girlfriend right now." Or, "Hey, I'm moving." And then I'm not going to spoil it, but when they actually do meet and then find out who the other person is,
Mm.
specifically in that order, it is really just cute. Like I forgot it was a novella because it is a novella series. That when they finally like meet, I was like, oh, the book is almost over. Like
Yeah.
it does happen right at the end, but it's very, very cute. Highly, highly recommend The Exception to the Rule by Christina Lauren.
And that's part of an Amazon series, an Amazon original series that has 6 books in it. And that was the first one. And I think it was the best one in there. So I also like the Sally Thorne book. And I'll just make this fine. I also liked the Sally Thorne book in that same series, where the heroine and her sister go into a sensory deprivation tank at a spa, and she gets stuck. The door gets stuck, and so she is completely naked and salty. Just in this like tank of wet water, and the firemen come to do the jaws of life to get her out, and but they don't want to break the tank, so they just talk to each other through the door for like an hour.
Yeah, that's Rosie and the Dreamboat.
Yes.
Yeah, really cute series. I haven't read the other ones in the series yet. Next up, I am going to read the Worst Wingman Ever, which is book 2 in the series by Abby Jimenez. So that's next on my list, and then it's Sally Thorne's book. So I'm going to get there.
All right, well, that gives us our plan for the next couple of days, and we will be back next week. We're going to be doing a deep dive of, I was going to say one of our favorite holiday TV or holiday movies, but I don't know if it's a favorite anymore. So join us next week for that, and like and subscribe, and Nikki, we'll talk to you then.